So we are on page 573 at the break. And we can see now why Savitri is an epic. Actually, this epic aspect of Savitri begins to come now. Epic is not just an normal yoga shastra or dharma shastra or it's certainly not just a spiritual almanac, but something much more. Epic becomes an epic when there is a battle in it. And we can see now this battle is coming up and how Savitri is getting ready for the battle. And this greatest epic is fought within the human soul. That is the ground. Sri Aurobindo says, speaks of that what really is this human soul and what its journey is. Its journey is a battle. And that's why for Sri Aurobindo's yoga at least, and he says that in several places in different ways, something of the Kshatra Tej, Kshatriya Tej, the aspect of the hero warrior should be there, because it's not just, even Sri Aurobindo says that my whole life has been a battle. Now that I wage it from a room and through ways unseen doesn't change its nature. When people wondered that, how come he has said his life is being lived dangerously. So he says, my life has always been a battle. And now that I am doing it within a room, it's a battle, it's an inner battle, especially Sri Aurobindo's yoga. When someone asked Arjav, James Chadwick, that what are you doing here in ashram? People often, we are going to ashram for peace. So Mother would say, if you want peace, go nearby. We have Arunachala hills, go and get peace. So what is happening here? Here there is battle. And this battle has two parts. First we fight outside because, the fighting instincts of man. Then we realize, that was a wrong enemy. The enemy is not outside. Actually that fellow is here inside. So then you fight the battle inside. So he said, we are fighting the battle with our ego. Even Bulle Shah says that if you have fought everywhere but you have not fought with your own nafas, apni nafas se ladiya nahi. So what is the point of victory? If you have not won over your ego, you have won over everyone. It doesn't mean anything. So to win that battle, so now Savitri is getting prepared to fight the battle not just with her ego, that she has long back won, but this whole mass of humanity which remains submerged willingly, happily, like a goat which is going to be slaughtered but is eating grass happily, thinking my master is so good, he is giving me grass. Such is the state of humanity. All in her mated with that mighty hour, as if the last remnant had been slain by death of the humanity that once was hers. And as I said, this is the difference that marks out a hero from just anybody. In the face of difficulty, when death comes as a challenge, some would try to escape and run here and there. Others say, if you are death, I have with me, within my heart, the Lord and Master and conquer over death. If you are Kal, I have within me Mahakal. And face it. That is the spirit with which we have to go through life. So this is not that kind of pacifist yoga where we sit quietly just in meditation and have some nice, beautiful experiences like goodies given to, for it's a real tough work. And that's what makes it very engaging and interesting. Assuming a spiritual wide control, not just a mental control. She is not putting below grief with the mind's philosophical turn. Oh, death is going to be there and I shouldn't cry. This is a spiritual control, which is a power, which is not just about control within, but controls and masters the forces and energies. If a person has a spiritual control within, it has an effect upon the environment. Whereas a person who is trying to control oneself mentally will only probably for some time control the emotions and after some time they'll burst out. But she has a spiritual wide control, making life see a mirror of heaven's sky. The young divinity in her earthly limbs filled with celestial strength her mortal part. And that's how Durga is born in human nature. It's not just a story to be, with 10 arms. How Sri Aurobindo made Durga manifest in the heart of India. Said that normally we have 10 armed goddess and 8 armed goddess. What does Bankim Chandra say, which Sri Aurobindo, so beautifully said? It's a mantra. He says, Mother, you are many armed. So he makes each of us an aspect of Durga. So that is how that celestial strength, then when we identify with that consciousness, then we share something of that strength within us. Over was the haunted pain, the rending fear. Her grief had passed away, her mind was still. Her heart beat quietly with a sovereign force. Normally in fear, the heart beats very fast, there is apprehension, there is all that. Now it has become calm and strong and powerful because there is a greater energy, greater power which is seizing it. So it is under its control. Even the physical heart. There came a freedom from the heartstrings clutch. Now all her acts sprang from a Godhead's calm. Calmly she laid upon the forest soil the dead who still reposed upon her breast, and bore to turn away from the dead form. Soul, now she rose to meet the dreadful God. So as I said, so beautifully describes, she lays Satyavan now. Now she is no more with the heart attached, mind is blank, all that is gone. And she is now, where is death? I want to meet death, this fellow. This is the power when we read some of these scriptures, how Markandeya, when not Markandeya takes a different route, but Mandavya Rishi, who is immortalized by Sri Aurobindo in the meditations of Mandavya, when he has to whole night sleep upon a bed of thorns for a crime he never committed. So normally we will curse somebody, you are the fellow, I hold grudge against you, because of you I am suffering. So when the king comes to know that I have wrongly punished him, he rushes and says, please forgive me. Mandavya says, for what? No sir, I am the one who has punished you. You? Who are you? I am the king. Oh king, you really believe it that you have punished? He says, sir, but I passed the orders. I want to talk to you. Where are you going? I am going to meet death. He says, what? I want to ask death why I had to face this fate of sleeping on a bed of nails whole night. He made you an instrument that's between you and death. You could have become an instrument of divine. You became an instrument of death. That's not my problem. That's your problem. It goes and meets death. Death says, some janmas back, death has read those standard stories. She wants to fool human beings. Says, the book of karma. You did some karma. You pierced a butterfly, so you had to. So Mandavya says, what nonsense? You mean if I pierce a butterfly, you'll give me this kind of punishment? Exaggerate like this? With all my tapobal, I change this law. It's an evolutionary story. He changes the law. If at all there has to be a punishment, there should be some proportion. And Sri Aurobindo speaks of it. What is this double punishment? First you are going to hell. Then you are born as punished. How can there be double punishment? Even human law will not allow. So what is this first? If you, for your sins, so-called sins or whatever else, we'll come to that later. You are punished in hell. Then after hell, at least okay, I have had my term. Now I'm a free man. No, you are born on earth with the stamp of hell. This fellow was a sinner. He had gone to hell. So therefore he must be born in very, very miserly surroundings. This is not fair. Similarly, double reward. First reward is heaven, then you are rewarded on earth. Sri Aurobindo takes a dig at it when he talks about the problem of karma and rebirth. He says, obviously these are fanciful old wives' tales, as they say. Or maybe we should know it's a women empowerment. So we should say old husband's tale. Why only old wife's tale? So, see, now rises. That mightier spirit turned its mastering gaze. She is no more that human Savitri, but the deathless being within her. So she turns and looks now at herself and Satyavan. And what does she see? Earlier as a human being, it's out of attachment. But now what she sees, that mightier spirit turned its mastering gaze on life and things, inheritor of a work left to it unfinished from her halting past. So she says, no, this work is not over. When yet the mind, a passionate learner, toiled and ill-shaped instruments were crudely moved. This work was not finished. This scene I capture in a different way. That, mother says that there was a dialogue between mother and Sri Aurobindo. And Sri Aurobindo, 1 year before, 1949, he tells her that, one of us has to go because Second World War, like poison had emerged, somebody has to drink the poison, prepare from the other side. And the mother said, she had anyways a very short lifeline. So she says, okay, I will go. Sri Aurobindo says, no. If one of us must leave, I will leave. You have to fulfill the yoga of transformation. So, your body is much better prepared for it. And he knew, he had decided that he would leave at a given point of time so that she can fulfill the work here. So, here I see this line, much would have transpired between them. And probably, this my fertile, holy imagination, they would have looked at each other and remembered, look, as Rama and Sita, you had to go back. As Krishna and Radha, you stayed in the background. But without you, the work cannot be finished. Now you stay in the forefront and I'll withdraw into the background. This nowhere written. It's written in my heart. But I love this feeling that, and who knows, they would have looked at each other. The past curve, that no, the work is not yet over. So this work has to be done this time. Either which way. We are one consciousness. You do it. I have tried it twice. But now it is the eternal feminine, the divine Shakti. And she takes charge of the work. And she says, I continue to stay here after Sri Aurobindo's withdrawal so that I can do the work of transformation. So, she looks upon the unfinished work. She will say this later also. She will say, I am not asking Satyavan for some personal joy. You think I am asking him just for some more years of life? No, there is a work unfinished. And together we have to do it. Of course, the symbol is there, which we'll come to some other moment. A moment transcendent now was the poor human rule. A sovereign power was there, a godlike will. The poor human rule is, oh, we are together, it's so nice, it's so sad. It's not about that. It's about a work which two beings had to do together. And they have to finish it. You can't, death has no right to snatch away until that curve is over. A moment yet she lingered motionless and looked down on the dead man at her feet. Now she is Durga. Dead man, she is, going to fight a greater battle. Then, like a tree recovering from a wind, she raised her noble head, fronting her gaze. Something stood there, unearthly, somber, grand. A limitless denial of all being that wore the terror and wonder of a sheep. Now she looks towards death. Who is this fellow? He is a limitless denial of all being. Destroys all forms at any level. So leave aside form divine, and you can't have divine life on earth playing with formlessness. The form has to be divinized. It's not about, and mother says that. Mother says that, my child, immortality is a child's play. She says that earlier, both of us, myself and Sri Aurobindo, we could easily enter into each other in our immortal state. But what she wants to establish is not just immortality of the Upanishads, the Vedas, the Gita, but a deathless form. She says the deathless state is different from immortality. So what is the deathless state? Where the body is, she uses a very interesting word. She says it's done futurewards. Normally, death is required to, constantly, there is an undoing of these cells and new cells are formed. But these new cells, for some reason, for some habit, they become like carbon copies. So each time you have a new set of cells, some error is crept in. So finally, there is nothing which is written. Like, those government copies you receive, carbon copies, and you can't read what this order is actually. It's all xeroxed. So eventually, all these cells, though they have changed, but we should be young. The last cells, every 7 years, the whole body undergoes a change. So why do we die? Because we actually are remade. But it's because something keeps getting pulled toward the inconscient, backwards. So every time something new comes, it takes a step backward. So she says the body should be able to be undone and remade futurewards. So you have the destruction of cells, but the new cells they come, they are stronger and better, more luminous. And they are ready now to face life even better, even stronger, even more beautifully. So the body is able to follow the rhythm of the universal self. That is the secret. So that's how Sri Aurobindo speaks of in the Life Divine, the secret of death. If the body can follow, soul advances, but the body is not able to keep pace. Even the mind is not able to keep pace. So what they do is they become rigid. Mind becomes rigid first in the beginning. Youngsters, you do all the things, then when you are grown old, you start saying, don't do this. You know how nice person I am. Thank God children don't know our past. Otherwise they'll say, I know how good a person you are. So sometimes they love to go to grandparents because grandparents will tell, your dad, he had done this when he was a child. Oh, my dad had done this. Oh, so it's okay, cool. But dads don't do say, you know what you are doing. So, rigid, mind becomes rigid. And heart becomes rigid. So we have heart attacks. Then it refuses to love, it becomes rigid, closed. Then this is what is type A personality, it cannot love. Then the force of life becomes rigid. Then the body becomes rigid. And then we still don't want to become that. So we don't want to take a stick, don't want to do this. We say no. No, because soul is immortal, it's true. But there is a disparity. If we were only souls, there is no problem. But this body fellow is the problem. The force of life always remains young, but the body begins to become rigid. But if with each changeover and turnover, it can become better and better, like new products, new cars, it becomes better. So then the body will be able to become immortal. So she looks and but this fellow is denying all these thoughts. What? Really? You want the form to become immortal, divinized, change all the laws? No way. So he's a limitless denial of all being. Even the being of God, he will deny. So we will see philosophies. He'll say later, this fellow will say, there is God, but who says he's a being? He's formless. There are philosophies who will say, God is nothing. It's just a formless power. So formless power has no being. It's a paradox. Being is not just this being. Being, by its very nature, it knows itself. It's conscious of who it is. So it's a being. By definition, it's a being. But he's a denial of all being. And what is it? That woe, the terror and wonder of a shape. Wonder because later on Sri Aurobindo will tell, it imitates the Godhead that it denies. It will say there is no eternal, but it says I am eternal. There is no king, but it will say I am king. There is no almighty power, but it will say I have all the power. So it is a wonder of a shape because he is denying all being, but still it is having a shape. So this is the paradox. In its appalling eyes, the tenebrous form, tenebrous, something dark, something very, like an underbelly, tenebrous form, bore the deep pity of destroying gods. His sorrowful irony curved the dreadful lips that speak the word of doom, eternal night, in the dire beauty of an immortal face. He doesn't die. But so he has a godlike aspect. At the same time, look how Sri Aurobindo can see beauty there too. He speaks of that. His experience in Alipur jail, where he says for the first time he could see beauty even in the most hideous and the most ugly. Mother describes this experience in Agenda when the Tantric Swamiji encircles all the titans and ties them with a rope. It must have been a magnificent sight. She says that now I could understand why he does things so quickly with this tantric puja. But then she says, I can't do it like that. Because the moment you leave them, they will again be, you have to keep on tying, otherwise they will start doing upadrav. And then she says, but as I was looking at those titans, I saw that in all of them there is divine love. The splendor of the Lord is shining there. So, she is able to see the Lord even in that. She says, okay, I'll transform you. So that is the infinite love that she has brought with her. So, he speaks of the dire beauty of an immortal face. There is beauty even in that destroying night. Pitying arose in the dire beauty of eternal night, in the dire beauty of an immortal face. Pitying arose, receiving all that lives forever into its fathomless heart, refuge of creatures from their anguish and world pain. So, that's its task. He is the great scavenger. He has to, take away all this which was hurting and paining. That's why we read in the beginning, in Book 1, Canto 1, that inheritor of the long agony of the globe. So he has inherited all this pain that human beings go through. Poor fellow, actually. His shape was nothingness made real. His limbs were monuments of transience, and beneath brows of unvarying calm, large godlike lids, silent beheld the writhing serpent life. Look at the wonder poet, that nothingness made real. Mother once gave this, we'll see eventually. At the end we will know it, but sometimes it's good to know the end in the beginning. So when mother used to give, there was a New Age association where Kishore Gandhiji would give some question and all the students will write in knowledge. And then they would go to mother who will give a correction. And finally the mother will give her answer. So one of the question was, what is death? So all of them wrote decentralization of the will, etc., etc. And mother keeps correcting it beautifully there in volume 12, New Age Associations. And at the end, mother's answer, she says, in fact, there is no death. It's amazing. There is no death. And yet we are taught he is the only real thing. There is no death. So nothingness made real. Now this is a wonder that how could it be? And yet it is so true. And what he is made up of? Limbs were monuments of transience. You have collages where everything torn and this thing you put together and you have a form. So what is death? He's a collage. Collage of all the things which were transient, which were washed away, they gathered together and create a form. You throw away, like, that palette brush. It's the same, that famous painter. So he would paint, and then his palette, because he has to remove that paint, so he would put it on a board and then dip it. And so he kept doing that. So he's saying, look at human beings and what to value about the value of their opinions, how silly it can be. So he had made such a good painting, nobody could appreciate it. But when the person saw this one, which was nothing but the scrapings, what a marvelous painting. It reveals to me so much. Would you sell it to me for so many dollars? He says he knew that he's a fool, but he needed money. So he said, okay, you take it, buy it. This much about our human valuation of things. So death is like that. All the palette scraps, waste, transience had created a monument. Monuments of transience. Look at this line, it's so interesting. And he has godlike calm. A calm which, he has to do his job like that. Like you see, you go to Harishchandra Ghat and Manikarnika Ghat in Varanasi. So you have the Dome Raja. He is still regarded as, because Shiva had made the first Dome Raja was Raja Harishchandra. So Dome Raja is actually called as he's the king. So you have to give something to the Dome Raja. There was a nice movie also made on that. And everybody else will go there and feel a kind of vairagya come over. Sight of bodies, so many bodies burning, floating, all kinds of things. But Domraja is doing his work nonchalantly, picking up the body, removing it, doing. He is not concerned. That is the death calm of death. This is not the higher calm. This is the calm of death. So he imitates everything where he is doing all this nonchalantly. And what is he looking at? The silent. He looks at the serpent, writhing serpent life. For it, life is what? I can crush it any moment. That's how it is looking. Unmoved, their timeless, wide, unchanging gaze. Again, we see the divine gaze and the gaze of death, which is also unmoved. It imitates. So that's why it's the shadow. Had seen the unprofitable cycles pass, survived the passing of unnumbered stars, and sheltered still the same immutable orbs. All the description that applies to the divine, immutable, unmoving, unchanging, all this applies the shadow. So he imitates the eternity that it denies. Now, it's interesting that he looks, so when sometimes the mood of death comes over human beings and they develop vairagya, or so they think. This world is what? It is Maya. So when Sri Aurobindo was asked, I feel vairagya inside me. Sri Aurobindo says that this vairagya can come with even a common cold. It's not the difficult part. The difficult part is to get out of this moha. You can get into this state. So death can bring this state. It's called in Indian thought as Shamshan Vairagya. Shamshan Vairagya comes because of death. It says, see, this is life. No. Still we must say, this is not life. What does Isha Upanishad say? This is not the end of life. There is something that survives. And it prays to Agni, Agni na Supatharaye. Take me through the right path. So it doesn't say, it says body, bhasmantam shariram. But there is within us the immortal. That doesn't die. But death brings that vairagya. What is the use of life? And then after that, this is a very funny scene. Actually, these are very funny scenes in Indian setting you'll see. When people are being taken, Ram Nam Satya, and then here they celebrate. I don't know what is the idea behind it, but it's very funny sometimes. Sometimes very ironic also, because you see a young person being taken. But you see, and then elders in the house, they will say, oh, mar gaya, see, yahi hai zindagi. Then after 2 minutes, they will say, acha, what is the food, that we are making for lunch? That is Samshan Vairagya. Very momentary, this is the Vairagya. And then, so Samshan Vairagya. So he is looking upon life. What is this life? Disdainfully. And we must know the difference between this and the true Vairagya. This Vairagya doesn't have power. This is Tamasic Vairagya, like Arjuna's Vairagya. It's not a Sattvic Vairagya. And such a Vairagya cannot carry us 5 steps ahead. That's why Sri Krishna tells Arjuna, now you are talking all this, you will abandon the battle. Second day, when you will see that there is a battle going on, you will itch to fight. And then people will make fun of you. So you better, get rid of all these feelings and fight. They two opposed each other with their eyes, woman and universal God around her, piling their void, unbearable loneliness upon her mighty, uncompanioned soul. Many inhuman solitudes came close. This is very interesting combination of words. On one side, there is unbearable loneliness. This is not a good feeling, painful feeling. But there is another kind of loneliness, the loneliness of the mighty and the great. Upon her mighty, uncompanioned soul, she is alone. But look at the difference. It's a mighty, uncompanioned soul. And the other is, loneliness is piling. But death is having all this, loneliness. Because he is the only fellow doing this dirty job. So when death enters our life, influences us, that's why in depression, people feel, I am all alone, nobody loves me, nobody cares for me. We should tell that this fellow is at work. Don't give him bread to eat. Say, look around, say the flowers are there, the sun is every morning shining upon me. I have never thanked him. The flowers are giving me their joy, the wind is there telling me free of cost you can breathe me. The water is there. Forget human beings. Human beings come last. The pets are there. People whom I love and people who have loved me and cared for me, all of them are there. Why do I feel lonely? But there is a greater way, and that today in the WhatsApp it circulated, that a journey is from being lonely to the solitude of the alone, the unique. So the contrast is shown, the lonelinesses which are piling up by death's presence. But she is uncompanioned soul, so she is powerful to face it. Then the third is inhuman solitudes, the solitudes of the wilds, that also comes into her. Vacant eternities, forbidding hope. So we see all of them, a state of abhava. That's what death is. It brings the sense of abhav. When we feel that, because inconscient is always suffering from this sense of abhav. I'm missing something, missing something, missing something. How to fill it? Divine love. That's why Mother says that the remedy is in divine love when people feel lonely. But that can fill any abyss. Laid upon her their huge and lifeless look, all these inhuman solitudes. And to her ears, silencing earthly sounds, a sad and formidable voice arose, which seemed the whole adverse worlds. Suddenly she heard this sad voice, all other earthly sounds, sweet chirping of birds and human sounds, such beautiful sound we don't value sometimes. So death says, unclasp, it cried, thy passionate influence and relax, O slave of nature, changing tool of changeless law, who vainly ridest rebellion to my yoke. Thy elemental grasp, weep and forget. So it says, don't. Leave this. Unclasp. You're a slave of nature. And we also sometimes believe it. We are slave of nature. We are bound to death. What to do? That is how fate is. But not Savitri, not her children. So here comes this line. She says, you are trying to rebel against my law. All the time your thoughts, feelings, everything is changing. The only changeless thing is me. I am the Nityam. So it's obviously this fellow exaggerates his self-importance because he doesn't know. He has to be shown the face of truth, which will come later. This is how philosophies are born, which we believe in, unfortunately. It says, weep and forget. You'll weep for some time. After that, tears will dry up. Later on, you'll say you'll find another Satyavan. So go ahead. So weep and forget. Entomb thy passion in its living grave. Again, he is speaking part truth. Later on, Savitri will tell, you are speaking truth, but the truth that slays. Living grave, this body is describing it as a living grave. So he says, you believe you are living. Yes, I've created this. I've entombed you inside. After this, you will go into the dead grave. That's the only difference. Why it is a living grave? Because we are unconscious. We live as if unconsciously. It's called asanna mrityu. The animals are regarded as living as if they are dead in the domain of death. But man has something else and he can emerge out of it. But most of us, even Mother says that. I have met many who were dead but intensely living. And I have seen many who were living but they were dead. So death is still telling half the truth, not the other part. Saying, living grave. Leave now the once loved spirit's abandoned robe. So he says, yes, I know about the soul. But this is a robe. Leave it. Pass lonely back to thy vain life on earth. Anyways, life is vain. Whether you lived with Satyavan or not, it's all the same. Go back. If seized, it ceased. She moved not. And it spoke again, lowering its mighty key to human chords, yet a dread cry behind the uttered sounds, echoing all sadness and immortal scorn, moaned like a hunger of far wandering waves. Now it says that, he has pity, not compassion. So probably he takes pity that, she is still now, let me tell her something which is little more human. So he says, lowering his note, "Wilt thou forever keep thy passionate hold? Thyself a creature doomed like him to pass, denying his soul death's calm and silent rest." He says, you are, I am taking him to rest and sleep. Why are you, troubling him? Leave him. Let him be quiet. This also. But here he has come back to his, little more, he's a bit modest. If death can be modest, human chords. He's saying that, leave him, let him go. He's not saying life is vain because he realized it's too much. So he says that, he will suffer. I am taking him to rest. You are also going to die one day. Relax thy grasp. Relax thy grasp. This body is earth's and thine. His spirit now belongs to a greater power. Woman, thy husband suffers. This is true. This is the step. So if we cry just with our weak emotions, but he doesn't know that this is none of that is happening in Savitri. But Sri Aurobindo is to bring out that deeper truth. So he says crying and thinking is not healthy because it makes suffer. So death itself is revealing this truth. But Savitri is not in that state. Death doesn't know who she is as of now. He thinks like any ordinary mortal, she is also suffering and crying. She is standing still because, she's shocked by my presence. So she is trying to comfort her. First he says, go back. Then he says that, if you don't relax, he will suffer, which is true. Let him go. I am going to give him rest and peace. Which is, of course, Sri Aurobindo and the mother have said, this is so true. So when people depart, crying makes it worse. So we have to let them go. It's like a final act of love. Like saying bye-bye. You want to travel to higher lands, to greater lands. You are going anyways to the divine. May the mother be with you. Let go. So, woman, thy husband suffers. Savitri drew back her heart's force that clasped his body still. Look at it now. We by our heart's force, by longing, by tears, by grief, we don't allow the transition. So Savitri suddenly, yes, there is merit in this part. So she withdraws her heart's force. Says, okay, fine. This one part. Where from her lap renounced on the smooth grass, softly it lay, as often before in sleep. Now he is mixing very interesting emotions because he is speaking of Savitri's heart, which was still holding it to an extent. And she suddenly remembers he is looking at this body which is dead. And she remembers how she has seen him this way. And look at the mixing like a master artist. Suddenly in the midst of this grandness and this epic and this death and divine, he brings in a very human element and puts it just at its right place. Sri Aurobindo at one place says, what does psychic do to emotions? He says, it gives to each emotion its just and rightful place. So when she looks at Satyavan, what does she see? Where from a lap renounced on the smooth grass, softly it lay, as often before in sleep. When from their couch she rose in the white dawn, called by her daily tasks, now too, as if called, she rose and stood gathered in lonely strength. How he blends these two states. Every day, Satyavan would be sleeping. She gets up and she has to do the daily tasks. So she looks before getting up, looks at her face and says, so wonderful. And says, I'll prepare everything and I'll wake you up. Or maybe you'll get up. Today also, she leaves him and gets up. But today also to do a task. What a wonderful blending of two different situations. But Sri Aurobindo unites them in one single state. The spirit of service to do a task as has never been done before. Today she has to bring him back. Every day she had to just clean the house, prepare the meals, but today something else. like one who drops his mantle for a race and waits the signal motionlessly, swift. So now she's ready, she drops the mantle. She's now ready for the race. She knew not to what course she knew not to what course. Her spirit above, on the crept summit of her secret form, like one left sentinel on a mountain crest, a fiery footed splendor, pusa winged, washed, flaming silent, with her voiceless soul, like a still sail upon a windless sea. Amazing description. So now she leaves all this and she is now with that wonderful presence. She doesn't know what's going to happen, what course it will take. She is in that moment, in that mightiness, and she is watching. Like when a combatant fights, he is waiting for the first move, what move he is going to make. Here Shobindu describes as the lonely sentinel. Imagine on the mountain top, this fellow doesn't know which way the enemy is going to come and is watchful of the entire area alone. She doesn't even know where is this death fellow standing. She looks at her eyes and he is like nothingness. He can vanish and reappear and like a presence around. White, passionless, it rode, an anchored might, waiting what far-reached impulse should arise out of the eternal depths and cast its search. So she is ready, either ways, and that's what she tells us. There are some people who think Mother has asked us to fight with death, and they take it in a very absurd way. So therefore I must go to doctor, I must take many cycles of whatever chemotherapy and this and that because Mother has said. It's not that. She says one must never ask for death. One must be never afraid of death. One must be prepared at each moment. So that if the eternal will be, if the Lord wills to leave the body, we are fine with it. If the Lord wills to stay in the body and fight, we are fine with it. So depending on the will inside, it's not a mental rule. We can't make a mechanical rule. The will within may be fight. Till the finish, till the end. Fight. Then doesn't matter. Success or failure is irrelevant in that case. Because one has done a work and gone. It's like a battle one is fighting. Not an individual battle, but battle against the night. Even if you fall, you have opened the door. And if you win, come back, then of course there is wonder. So it will depend on the will. So she also waits. What is the will within? Then death the king leaned boundless down as leans night over tired lands. What a description this is. Tired lands. Everything is alive and conscious. Night over. We see that whole day, lands, how do they get tired? Whole day there is activity. So we never think Mother Earth is getting tired. She also needs rest. That's why when dancers in India go for dancing, they first touch the bhumi. Why do they touch? Not because I must perform well. It's because Mother Earth, you are going to support my movement. I am not Shiva. I am going to dance chaotically. God knows I'll do a lot of thump. So please, you are supporting this. So I am already seeking your help, your forgiveness. So it's alive. So it's tired all the day. Then night comes over. And for a moment, earth is at rest. It leans. So look, Shobindu is saying, death leans like night over this body of Satyavan. Night over tired lands, when evening pales and fading gleams break down the horizon's walls, nor yet the dusk grows mystic with the moon. So like that, he gives a description, death leans over. The dim and awful Godhead rose erect, from his brief stooping to his touch on earth, and like a dream that wakes out of a dream, forsaking the poor mold of that dead clay, another luminous Satyavan arose. Now see the description. Like a dream that wakes out of a dream. We think it is real. But of course, even though it is dream, it is a dream fact vision of truth. We must understand it in that sense. But nevertheless, there are other worlds, other activities we do not know. With, as one proceeds on yoga, one becomes conscious of other worlds. In the night, what's happening? But ordinarily, we sleep and we forget. That's how Wordsworth puts it. Our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. So he said, this is a sleep. And we are dreaming. And suddenly you wake up from a dream. And then you see, oh, it's a different world. I was dreaming. And then you wonder which is more real. That or this. Mystics speak about it. But this is still greater reality which will come much later. But for the moment, first step of death. Starting upright from the recumbent earth, as if someone over viewless border stepped, emerging on the edge of unseen world. So the sense is that, Garur Puran and Yog Vasis describe this very graphically, that there is a disorientation. Now this disorientation they describe in very graphically. You don't know whether earth is on top or sky is below. But that's very scary actually. It's like, of course, aircrafts while flying can experience that. Because suddenly when you enter into that domain, if one has never been consciously in these domains, one is lost, disoriented. Where is earth? Where is the ground? Where is the border? Where is the horizon? Where is, this street, that street? Search for Google Map. You don't have, your cell phone is not there. Death doesn't allow. So, you are wondering, where am I? So there is a disorientation. So Satyavan rises and he is wondering where is he. For a moment he doesn't know. So, he is woken up or emerges out of the body. Not woken up. Emerging on the edge of unseen worlds, in the earth's day the silent marvel stood between the mortal woman and the God. So Satyavan is described as earth's silent marvel. Why is a marvel? He remains immortal through all this, the soul of man. So this is the marvel, it stands. And right now, he is standing between the God, dreadful God, and the woman. But slowly now, such seemed he as if one departed came, wearing the light of a celestial shape, splendidly alien to the mortal ear. So the subtle physical sheath is more luminous, more bright, and one wonders that this is the kind of dress we were wearing that Sri Aurobindo describes in Book 2, Canto 2, Subtle Physical Realm, that, we depart in that subtle sheath and it's more luminous, more beautiful. It's a very beautiful figure. All subtle physical forms are beautiful. So if lifelong one wondered why one is not looking beautiful, after death at least we get a recompense. If at all there was a mirror and we could look, we will say, wonderful. I am beautiful indeed. This form was the problem, this earthly form. Because all subtle physical forms cares for only beauty and outline. So he marvels, he comes out and Sri Aurobindo describes that form. Such seemed he as if one departed came, wearing the light of a celestial shape, godlike shape, splendidly alien to the mortal ear. We don't find such forms. The mind sought things long loved and fell back foiled. Now he is looking for, where am I? Who was with me? We cannot remember. So people often say, the proof that there is no rebirth is that we do not remember our past lives. See, we can look at it in a different way. The proof that God loves is that we do not remember our past lives. One life itself is a problem enough. Managing one life's relations, Indian household, chacha, tao, nana, nani, God knows, bacha, kacha. Imagine many lives, you suddenly become conscious. Are wo bhi tha mera rishtedar, ye bhi tha. You'll be all confused. So it's the proof that we don't remember past life is a proof that God really loves us. Makes us forget. Because otherwise we'll be tired. But when we are freed from all this, then we remember. Because then we will not start getting attached like this. Oh, he was my loved one, let me do something special. No, when you are freed from that, then you remember. The soul remembers. Then we remember the past lives, not before that. So it's there in the psychic. So He is trying, his mind is trying. So death has some misery also, some pity also inside it. So what it does is takes away the chip. You know, we had that movie like that. No, what was it? Somebody would remember. What is amnesia, inception? Forgets, no, the fellow that what am I? Chip something. Yeah. Brain. Something was there that, he forgets. Like a chip. So he takes away that chip. Now you try to remember, you can't remember. So sometimes, before death, it prepares us by making us forget in life itself. And people say, so sad, can't remember. It's maybe a blessing. What is there worthwhile to remember? Only thing worthwhile to remember is Mother and Shubindo's name. If a person can remember it, very nice. Even if the outer being cannot remember, the inner being surely remembers. So, these are small mercies, like, death also gives some chocolates. Okay, I'll make you forget. So it's not able to remember. From unfamiliar use, beheld yet longed, by the sweet radiant form unsatisfied, incredulous of its too bright hints of heaven. It's saying, this is me really? No. I am something else. So it's trying to remember who it is. It had a different form. How can I be so radiant? This can't be me. All this is going inside his being. So even though it's radiant, it's a bit unsatisfied. Looking at something to clasp, and it can be very disorienting experiences, especially sudden deaths. I remember one lady, she said that, in the dream, my husband came. He was a sub-inspector and he had gone to check a vehicle. And suddenly he was hit by another vehicle which was going by the side. And he died suddenly. And he comes in a dream and says, and he says very nonchalantly, I asked him when he was saying, was there sorrow? He said, no, he had no sorrow. I am the one who is suffering. So what he describes is, I don't know what happened. I had gone there. He described the whole scene. He says, suddenly I saw my body is being taken. So I tried to enter. I couldn't enter. So then I stood outside the hospital and then I don't know what happened. Very nonchalantly described and went away. And this lady, knew the whole thing, but she was suffering. So like that, it describes, there is another, in that book, Death, Dying and Beyond, I have quoted one girl, how 5 years before her death, she gives a poem on her father's birthday. And she writes a poem that, I see my body lying on the road, mangled and, torn. And then I come out. And then suddenly I see a light. And I'm ascending towards my luminous home, forgetting everything, saying a bye-bye. And then she thought it's a very good poem. Then she realized that, what am I giving? Then she gave it to her father with a note that, I'm sorry, Dad, I could give only this. It came to me as a poem. I'm sorry, but this what? She never thought that this is something real. This was a foreseen event after 5 years. The father had brought that handwritten note and showed it to me. I had reproduced it just like that in that book. He has foreseen. So like that he is disoriented. But the one who has departed very soon forgets. But there are other issues which will come. But not this one. There are other Baitarani which has to come on the way. Too strange the brilliant phantasm to life's clasp, desiring the warm creations of the earth. There is something on earth which is missing. What is it missing? The psychic presence, the warmth it gives to the heart. So it sees brilliant creations, everything is there. But where is that touch which comes upon earth? On earth, even in dogs and cats and matter and river and mountain, you can feel the psychic presence which gives it a warmth and a sweetness. That is missing. So something is missing. What is missing? So he is trying to feel. Too strong the brilliant phantasm to life's clasp, desiring the warm creations of the earth, reared in the ardor of material suns. There are other suns which is going to confront. These senses seized in vain a glorious shade. So now these subtle senses, the gross senses have been dropped. The subtle senses are trying to, feel, clutch something of that material shade. It's not able to find. Only the spirit knew the spirit still. Still it knows that I am. Shubinda says, whether I live or die, I am. So it knows I am. But what is this? What kind of a creature am I? Because I identified with body and the earth scenes, is trying to search. It's not so bad, not something horrible. And the heart divined the old loved heart, though changed. Between two realms he stood, not wavering, but fixed in quiet, strong expectancy, like one who, sightless, listens for a command. And the other thing that is happening is senses are clutching. The heart is feeling this somebody I love, something I love, someone. It's honing on to it, like, where is this? It's getting drawn. So if we try to pull the person by all our longings, because it's a divination inside, because through the heart that the soul is pulled. So something of the heart is still there. It's divining. There's someone whom I love. So it tries to go near that. Sometimes people actually reappear and say, like a final bye-bye, I'm going, because it divines. It's not like, the pata, gali, mohalla, ghar. No. It knows and spontaneously goes. So how nice if, we can go straight to mother's room. Then we don't have to wait for, 21st February, 17th November, pass and timings. Straight away. There it is. My divining heart. But ordinarily that's not the case. So this is how heart, and two more lines, then we will stop. So were they immobile on that earthly field, powers not of earth, the one in human clay. On either side of one, two spirits strove. Silence battled with silence. Vast with vast. So this is the immediate moments after death, before the journey actually begins. So we'll stop here and continue tomorrow. So it's very nice. If you finish this whole journey, we will know what is it. So we'll have a map with us, Google map, so we can tell all the roads, turns, nooks, cranny, and can straight away come to Mother.